Hello, my name is Frank Rapier, and I'm here to talk to you today about the need for a global green economy. In the last 40 years, we have been looking for ways to rekindle the economic booms of previous histories. The boom from the Industrial Revolution, the boom after the Second World War, and even the minuscule tech boom of the early 1990s. Every day we look for different ways and different formulas and different techniques in which to stimulate economic growth. But the key word there is stimulating economic growth, and the ability to do so is all around us. It's right outside our window. Renewable resources, solar energy, wind energy, and geothermal energy. How do we get to this? Very simple. At current consumption rates, it's estimated the planet will run out of oil in 53.5 years. So what do? Do we continue to consume oil and hope magically that we'll continue to find oil fields that have never been tapped before? And even if we do, at that point when we start tapping those oil fields, we're still consuming more than we need to. We're still consuming a resource that is a failure. Now, when the Industrial Revolution happened and coal and oil became the most primary forms of energy, it was plentiful. It was all over the planet. But the irony of it is that before we really started to use these consumable fossil fuels, technically we used renewable energy. And as primitive as that sounds, the technology from the Industrial Revolution has got us to a point where we can use renewable energy now, and it's not going to be a primitive form of energy. Solar energy, wind energy, and geothermal energy are resources that will never run out. If you were running a company or you were starting a company, and I told you, if you start this particular company, I am going to show you exactly how you can have a resource that you can sell, and you never have to worry about importing it. You never have to worry about running out of it. It regenerates itself literally by the minute. Wind, solar, and geothermal. Now, how do we get this instituted? Very simple. Currently, governments all over the world subsidize oil companies. They subsidize to keep the prices down, to keep the consumer able to buy gas, buy heat, buy electricity. All of this is done specifically for the benefit of these resources that are quickly running out all over the planet. So instead, flip it. Instead of charging as much income tax as we do, lower income tax rates to 2 to 3% on every American, and tax carbon immensely. Make energy companies foot the bill for the economy. Take that extra money from the carbon tax and invest it in developing renewable energy. Now, a lot of my friends say that I'm nuts, and they're probably right, I am, but in regards to this, they say that it's something that can never happen. And I say, why? To me, from a business standpoint, it makes absolute sense to invest in something that you don't have to monopolize, something that is not particularly going to be a resource that runs out, or nothing that you have to do business with people on other sides of the planet that may or may not be friendly to our nation. You don't have to negotiate prices for it. Wind, solar, and geothermal are right outside our door, and they continue to generate every minute. There's enough solar energy in the western United States to power the entire United States. There's enough wind energy produced in the central United States to power the central United States and most of the West. Okay? You combine these energies from the West, the Central, and even on the East Coast, and this country could be 100% green before the year 2020. Now, a lot of people talk about the costs. Now, currently it's 38 cents a kilowatt to produce electricity from solar energy. It's less than a penny from coal. It's roughly 3 cents for natural gas and about a nickel from oil. Wind energy costs less than a penny. So the wind energy is as comparable to all three fossil fuels in regards to cost. And again, it's plentiful. Now, how do we drive the cost of solar down? I mentioned the carbon tax. Money from the carbon tax can be put into bonds that investors can invest in to help raise more capital for research on how to develop a solar panel that is less expensive, that can bring in this energy at a lower cost. And also the carbon tax can create grants to energy companies for these particular research projects. Now, why should we go to a global green economy? It's really quite simple. Everybody in this area knows about the Keystone Pipeline. They know that everybody is pushing either yes or no for it, depending on where you stand. The arguments for it state that the Keystone Pipeline is going to create jobs. In all actuality, the pipeline would create 42,000 jobs, most of which would be temporary, and initially the cost of any oil may go down, but we're continuing to pump from the planet, and eventually we're going to have to look for other resources to pump from. So are we going to put in more pipelines? Are we going to continue to put in pipelines and continue to consume? Or are we going to look at something that we can just lay solar panels down, we can put up wind turbines, and we can generate all the power that we need? Conversely, if we were to switch to a global green economy, 1.7 million jobs would be created in the first year alone. These jobs would mainly be permanent. A lot of them would be construction jobs and would continue as more wind turbines and solar camps are built. Then those places would need to be manned. That would create even more jobs. Getting the energy from rural areas where the wind comes from or the solar comes from into cities would create jobs. As the economy starts to grow through more employment, more income in pockets, the investment into electric rail cars, investments into more green ways of sustaining water on the planet become prevalent. And the benefit of all of this is that each and every country have these resources and can become self-sufficient on themselves. Currently, the biggest country in the world, the most industrial country over the last 20 years, China, has been over-consuming itself to the point where they have really gotten behind wind. China currently is the #1 country in the world in wind production. There's no surprise that their economy continues to boom. But even they realized in their small nation that if they don't make a change, not only are they going to pollute themselves into extinction, they're going to consume themselves into extinction. China put together an initiative for wind and solar energy, and for the first time ever, outlying villages had electricity and warm running water. This potential is there for not only China, it's also there for Pakistan and India. It's also there for every country in Africa. There's a gold mine in Africa. There is enough renewable energy on that continent that every one of those failing states could come out of poverty by the year 2030 and sustain themselves and be booming economically. Now, from an economic standpoint, the bigger the world economy, the better. A bigger economy means there's more money. It's like a poker game. The more people you get in the game staking money, the more money there is to take in. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not looking at this from a completely capitalist standpoint to try and get rich. I'm looking at it from a standpoint of the benefits of not only creating a stable world economy and a stable world environment, as well as rescuing mankind and rescuing vegetation and possibly extinct species on this planet. I'm looking at it from a standpoint that every time we have done something to this degree, the world economy has boomed and everyone has been better off. So now how do we pay for this? Well, at the end of World War II, we invested a large sum of money at that time, $13 billion, in the European Recovery Project, or the Marshall Plan. The principle behind that was that we, the United States, a country that still had a vast amount of resources and economically was strong, could go in and rebuild Europe from the devastation of the Second World War. The benefits in doing this were that we propped these economies back up, made these countries self-sufficient quicker, and we also thwarted the spread of communism into Western Europe. Now, if we invest either in the public or the private sector the money to convert to a global green economy, not only here, but in several failing nations throughout the world, and not just us as the United States. I'm talking us as the United States, China, Germany, France. All of us get behind this initiative and start rebuilding these countries with solar panels, wind farms, or hydroelectrical plants so that they could convert all of their natural resources into energy, renewable energy, without having to strip the planet, strip their landscape, and slowly boost them back up. They would be able to sustain themselves. They would be able to grow their own vegetation. They would be able to economically grow. Poverty would begin to disappear in their nations. And as the countries began to come from the failing point, the possibility of terrorism goes away. Now, in closing, I would just like to say that I really have been very fortunate to have taken this class. Before I took this class, I was aware of global warming from a standpoint that the seas could rise, storms could become more severe, the temperature on the planet was going up, greenhouse gases being emitted in the atmosphere. But looking at just those particular things and all of the secondary effects that they've had on the environment, from the deforestation and the means of industrialization to overpumping of oil and aquifers, it has really opened my eyes. And it is why I chose to do this topic, looking at a way to use renewable resources that are at a surface level so that we could stop devastating the planet. Thank you so much for listening to me. Have a great day.